One of those destinations that usually appear quite near the top of anyone's holiday wish list is Japan. Now, there's so much to try and say about Japan, way too much to cram into such a short video. You want history, you've got history. You want nature, you've got nature. You want culture. I mean, the Japanese culture is something very special. You want food, you want things to do. You want the city, you want the countryside. Japan offers it all. And because it has it all that remains is to say what you need to know before you go to Japan. Japan's around 11.5 hours flight from the UK, direct to Tokyo. It's definitely worth considering a direct flight. We went via Singapore, had a few nights in Singapore before flying into Osaka. And while it was great to have a few nights in Singapore, the flight from Singapore to Osaka was about 7 hours. That really did add on a lot of pressure coming back. That makes it a very long flight. So if you can go directly, please do go directly because it's quite a distance from some of those hubs in like Hong Kong or Singapore or KL or any of those sort of places. So be careful of that. The second point I have for you is the language. Now, Japan is obviously a very advanced, sophisticated country, and you will get a lot of the younger people familiar with English. However, don't expect everyone to be fully bilingual. In fact, quite a lot of the places outside of the main cities, and even some places inside Osaka and Tokyo, went to a couple of places where they didn't speak English at all. So just be careful of that. It's not that difficult to get by in Japan. It's a phonetic language, so it's quite easy to pronounce things. And there's little tips you can do and little tricks. So, for example, if you go into a restaurant, you don't need to do some long-winded request. You can just hold up two fingers and say "ni," which means two, and they will know that you want a table for two. And an extra point on the language is have a research into specific phrases that really do help in any circumstance. So, for example, we found one if you stumble into a restaurant or bar where they don't speak English and your Japanese isn't particularly good, simply say "Watashi ni erandi," which translates as "please pick for me." One of the other great things about the Japanese people is they're immensely proud, so they're not going to rip you off. Anytime we use the phrase, we got a really nice selection of sushi and other food. The bill came and it wasn't expensive, so don't expect you to say this phrase and the Japanese people will bring out caviar, the most expensive fugu sushi or wagyu beef steak. They won't rip you off. Well, they meant to, but they didn't rip us off. The third point I have is try to get out of the big cities and see as much as you can. As I mentioned, we flew into Osaka, which is a great city. There's got some good museums there, some pretty temples, some fun neon nightlife, and all that kind of stuff. Great food. Actually, as I mentioned food, we probably should quickly do an aside on the food. Food in Japan is fantastic, really top quality. You can obviously go to the high-end restaurants. I think Tokyo actually has the largest amount of Michelin stars for any city. I think Kyoto is third, with Paris sandwiched in the middle. But we ate fantastically well, not overly priced, and you've always got really sort of cheap and cheerful options like a Katsu curry, so fantastic things to eat. Also, this is quite surprising. So we actually had to skip dinner one of the evenings in Osaka for reasons I won't go into, and ended up getting dinner from the 7-Eleven. Now, for anyone who's been in a 7-Eleven, especially in the States, I am so used to having really stodgy processed beige stuff like weird pizza and yeah. But you know, when you can get fresh sushi, decent beer, and so on from the 7-Eleven, it's a great option for lunch and indeed dinner. Probably considerably cheaper than a Michelin-starred restaurant too. Anyway, where was I? Oh, it was Osaka. Right, Osaka. There's not a huge amount to do beyond a day, so I would recommend doing a sort of day mooching around, seeing the culture there, and then getting out and about. And actually, we used Osaka because it's such a great base, and there's so many interesting things around there. And the first recommendation would be the Nara and Kyoto day trip. This was a good day, plenty of fun things to do. There was the iconic Kinkakuji temple. There's also the other temple in the western part of Kyoto, and then you hang around Nara Park as well. So that was a good day out, feed the deers, and see some history. My second recommended day trip was out to Hiroshima and Miyajima. Now, Hiroshima is a very interesting and poignant place. It's not quite what you'd expect. There is the iconic picture of the ruins from the atomic bomb, but the rest of it is new, shiny, and clean. So it's a very profound place to go, especially the museum. When you go to the Hiroshima Museum, yeah, there's some pretty harrowing stuff in there. So yeah, I would say it's yeah, similar to when we've been to places that have had those kind of terrible events. It's quite a sobering but important thing to do. And the afternoon, then you go down to the Miyajima Island. It's a lovely island, very pretty, so many good shots, lots of interesting and engaging things to do. Don't miss out on the very famous shrine, the Itsukushima Jinja. But that's great. There's so many good pictures of that. Now the trip's about 12 hours, which is one of the longest ones we've been on, certainly for a day trip. But the historic importance of Hiroshima and the natural beauty of Miyajima are certainly worth the visit. Now, the next must do I have for you is the bullet train. Japan's bullet trains are famous around the world, and riding it is a fantastic experience. Not just the speed, but the culture. There's a great culture of it. I love the fact that the conductors go through each carriage, and when they move through, they turn around and bow. So we got the train from Osaka to Tokyo. We just turned up on the day and bought the tickets. The trains are fairly frequent every half hour. Not necessarily the cheapest, but a really effective and fun way to get from one part of the country to another. And then we move on to Tokyo, Japan's capital city. I'm conscious of I'm going to start using the word iconic quite a lot here, but it is iconic. There's way too much for me to say in this short video on Tokyo and what to do. What you need to know, though, it's a very big, sprawling city. So must-knows are do the research on where you stay. We were in Shinjuku, which was a nice area, but we were quite a far away from the bars. It was a bit closer to Shinjuku Station. Another thing is navigating these stations. There's tons of exits, so it's quite easy to get lost. So keep your wits about you. Generally, though, you don't need to be too concerned with crime or anything like that. The Japanese people are very friendly. They will try and help you if you get lost. Now, the list of things to do in Tokyo is incredibly long, and this is by no means definitive, but a few things that are worth highlighting include the Imperial Palace. That's great to have a wander around there. A lot has been said, rightly so, about the Sakuchi outer market, the fish market. I think that's actually changed since we went, but that was amazing to walk around there, see the market in action, plenty of good photo opportunities. And it depends on when you go in the day, but there should be some stalls around there selling some fish. So if you can get the fish fresh from the market stalls, that's definitely worth a try. And obviously, you're in Japan, so you want to go to some Japanese gardens. There are a great selection of gardens in and around Tokyo. I can't remember them all, but there was lovely weather. It was sort of 30 degrees, so pretty warm, but it just brought out such good, vivid visuals for those gardens. So hunt those ones down. There's obviously museums you can go to, plenty of art, history, katanas if you're into that kind of thing. There's obviously countless temples, there's bars, there's nightlife, there's neons, there's skyscrapers, there's just the general buzz. You can just walk around there and just soak up all the vibes. And as mentioned earlier, Tokyo is one of the food capitals of the world. The sushi we had there was phenomenal. They had great street food, good craft beer. Surprisingly, we found a couple of craft beer places. And one tip I realized in terms of etiquette is if you're going to eat some udon soup or anything like that, feel free to slurp. Apparently, it's a sign that you really are enjoying your food. And in fact, one lady, old lady, came up and gave us a thumbs up during lunch because we were particularly loud and sloppy. So I think that was a good sign. And actually, while we're on the topic of people, a couple more social etiquette tips for you. One, in terms of respect, Japan is all about bowing, and apparently the lower you bow is the more senior you are. So if you just sort of nod your head down, it can be quite disrespectful. So just keep an eye on that side of things. And I think my final point today would be, if you're looking for a day trip out of Tokyo, try the Mount Fuji Hakone Lake Ashi day trip. That is a good one. Now, what you need to know about Mount Fuji is those picture postcard photos of the mountain, reflected in the river are stunning. Don't get your hopes up. It can get very cloudy, it can get very overcast. So, if your luck's in, you might get something like that. When we went, the peak was pretty much clouded over and it wasn't snow capped or anything. There was a brief second, I think we just about got to see it, but yeah, don't get your hopes up. It's still an impressive place to visit. And then the cable car ride as well, and the lake is just great. So definitely worth thinking about as a place to go. Anyway, that's my experience of Japan. Wonderful country with wonderful people, and I definitely want to go back because we didn't do the half of it. There's all those sort of snow monkeys, and want to get further out into the countryside and do a lot of different things. So hopefully we'll get to go over there again. But if you are going, enjoy.